Okay guys, so we're going to have a look at a technique from inside the guard, punch block protection. Okay, so there's many different ways on how we can pin and control someone from inside our guard. A very important skill to learn, okay, especially MMA, and we're talking self-defense too. Our main threat is our attacker to be able to just strike us, and we need to understand closing the distance and managing contact and control. Okay, as I explained in class, two safe areas that we are in any sort of self-defense situation. I want to be all the way out too far that they can't hit us, or all the way in. I'm closing that gap and making sure that I keep them in nice and tight and utilising good control and pins and various overhooks and underhooks. Okay, so let's have a look at punch block protection from inside the guard. Punch block protection from inside the guard. We have an attacker on top that's trying to hurt damage. The distance that my attacker can strike us, okay, I want to be closing the distance, okay. I never want to have my attacker in this position where he's free to punch, okay. So I want to close the distance, and one thing that I can do is, if I have time, I might be able to utilise my legs to pull him in, and I'm going to evade the punch by moving my body away. So as he tries to hit me, I pull him in and I cover up. Now from here, I'm going to establish a collar tie. I grab the back of my opponent's neck, and my arm is going to be deep above his elbow. If I can, maybe I can make his head turn this way, because we have to take into consideration all sorts of elements of self-defense, the ability for our attacker to bite us. If I have his head down here, and I have seen this in a few years I did work security, is I actually had someone bite one of the other guys. So I want to make sure to stop any sort of biting, I turn his head this way, okay? So think of it like zombie apocalypse, all right? I don't want him to bite me. I make his head turn this way, and I can be as violent as I need to be. I can utilise my hand to pull his ear, okay? We can be very violent from this situation. So I have a deep overhook, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my body away, so I have my guard modified in this modified guard position. This enables me to start opening up attacks and defense. If my attacker decides to retract this arm, I want to move my body away from the punch. I'm not going to stay here and stay close up to him, because this could wrap around and still hit me in the face. I want to move my body away from the punch. Now, if my attacker makes space to punch, I want to fill that space. So I'm going to utilize my knee as a knee shield. So here, I cup the back of my opponent's tricep, and I have good pressure with my shin, okay? And now I can start working on my attacks and things like that, okay? So once we get to this position here, hypothetical situation, he manages to pull this arm out. Here, same thing, I move my body away from the punch. Now I fill that space with my knee. Now if he's created enough space, maybe I have enough space for me to sort of shrink my hips out. And if this is the street, if I have enough space to get away, I would just be here, boom, kicking in the face. Okay, and then I can get back to my feet. We always look at worst case scenario. So once I get to this position here, another common scenario is the ability for our opponent to try and parry our legs across. So if Ed pushes away, boom, fight's over. Okay, so I need to be ready on what can happen in any situation. So if I have my feet on my opponent's hips, I want to have good elevation, and I want to pinch my knees together so my opponent can't touch my face. If my hips are down, he can still strike me. So now I want to elevate the hips and keep my body in center line with my opponent. So now if we're moving, he can't hit me from here. Now let's look at this problem, okay, when he parries our legs to the side. So if he parries my legs to the side, I want to be ready and utilize my legs as a scissoring action. So my leg is catching on the back of my opponent's lat, and then my foot or my leg here is a scissoring action, okay? I don't want to over-rotate, okay? I want to sort of be more 45 degrees, and also my hands too. I have my hands up ready for self-defense with guard. When you come back to the same position, he goes the other way. I catch, okay? Now what happens if my opponent stands? So here, I have a standing opponent, he manages to get to his feet. I never ever want to let my opponent grab both my ankles, because if he grabs both my ankles, he can throw my hands over, boom, fight's over, okay? So I want to make sure that if he grabs both my ankles, I want to make sure that I can retract at least one of my legs and use my leg to kick and implement strikes, okay? So my foot can be on my opponent's hips. This leg will be used to strike to the face. If he's a little bit stretched further back, I can use the back of my heel and rain down kicks this way, all right? So I never want to be letting my opponent grab both my ankles. So we're moving around, we're here, my attacker's trying to pass. If he does manage to pass, I don't want to bring my far leg in. It's my knee leg. I want to bring my far leg in. So if my attacker moves all the way around, I want to bring my guard back up and face my opponent, okay? So if we do that as a bit of an exercise, he grabs my ankles, I move around. He moves past my gut, I'm always here, and I'm always back into the direction, okay? Now sometimes what can happen is if I have an opportunity, maybe I can bring my foot on the hip, I can still implement strikes. There is a very effective sweep. So I have my foot on my opponent's hip. Now what I'm going to do is if I can actually find the back of his heel, my other leg is going to be behind the back of his knee. Now this technique is a push-pull principle. I'm pushing my opponent back with my foot, I'm pulling on his ankle, and then the back of my foot is utilizing as a hook behind the back of his knee. And I can bring a standing opponent down to his hip by pushing up and down, and then I catch. I want to make sure that when I drop my opponent down, I catch this leg, because if I don't, boom, he can up kick me and things like that. Okay, so I grab the back of his ankle, and obviously from here we can implement all sorts of things. Obviously his groin is exposed. I would be kicking here, kicking away, and then I can start the process of getting back to my feet. All right, let's have a look at that again. So we start this from punch block protection from inside the guard. We have an attacker on top of us. I want to close the distance. I move my body here, and then I want to establish a deep overhook. So my arm is nice and deep above the elbow. My other hand used as a collar tie, okay? For self-defense, I also like to make the guy's head turn this way, and that stops anything like biting, okay? So I make his head turn this way. Now, if our attacker makes space to try and punch, I move my body away from the punch. I don't stay in the line because this can wrap around and hit me in the face. I want to move my body away. If he makes space, I feel that space. So now my knee is going to shoot on the inside of his arm here, okay? Now, if he manages to pull his other arm out, same thing. I move my body away from the punch, and then I shoot my other knee on the inside here, okay? Good tricep control. I won't stay here too long, okay? Because now I have enough space to move my body away, and if I have enough time, maybe I can kick him away, all right? If we're in this position here and he manages to posture up, okay, I don't want to be flat on my back with my feet in my attacker's hips. I want to make sure that I have my hips elevated. That stops him from hitting my face. If my hips are down, he can still strike me in the face, okay? So knees pinched together, feet on the hip, elevation, okay? Now, another thing is he might try to parry my legs across. As he parries my legs across, I use my legs as a scissoring action, okay? The more he forcefully drives my legs across, it actually makes him more off balance. So if we come back to here and Ed forcefully drives me this way, I can actually tip him over, okay? So the more force that he applies, the more off balance he gets, all right? Now the last thing is obviously a standing opponent. So they get to their feet and they stand up. Same thing, I never want to let my attacker grab my ankles, okay? My legs are always moving, I'm moving around, I'm leg pummeling, okay? Now here, if I have a foot on the hip, if he's bent over, maybe I can kick him in the face. If he's a little bit further back, I can use this foot and I can rain down axe kicks, okay? And don't forget, we can be as violent as need to be to get to our feet. I can hit him in the groin, etc. Now, if he manages to pass my guard, if he moves around, I don't stay here. I don't throw my lead leg up. I get my hands into the mix. It's my opposite leg. So my far leg, I swing and I come back facing to my opponent. Okay? So when we're here, we're moving around. I don't let him grab my ankles. Now, if I manage to bring a hip placement, if I have my foot on my attacker's hip, and I manage to actually get my close hand to his ankle, I can execute a tripod sweep. So my foot on my attacker's hip, my other hand is going to be by his ankle. Now my other leg is going to be behind my attacker's knee. Okay, so it's push-pull principle. I push and I pull with my foot. As I sit him down on the hip, I sit up and I catch his leg. I catch his leg because that stops him from kicking me. All right. And like I said, we can be as violent as possible. I can kick him in the groin, and then obviously I can get to my feet and exit out. And that is the punch block protection guard sequence.